Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brad Harbison from PCT Magazine. Welcome to today's webinar, Getting Control of Small Flies and Cockroaches, sponsored by Nisus Corp. So in this webinar, you're going to learn about Nibor-D Insecticide Foam plus IGR and how it can be part of your toolbox for your battles when controlling small flies and cockroaches, especially in tough accounts like commercial kitchens, restaurants, and other accounts. So our speaker today is Dr. Jamel Sandage from Nisus Corp. And I'll tell you a little bit about Dr. Sandage. He's been an active member of the pest management industry on multiple levels for the past 22 years. Jamel joined Nisus Corp in 2019 as the innovation platform leader for pest management systems, where he was responsible for driving the development and the growth of new and existing products in the professional line. So he is now the National Director of Technical Services, and in this role, he supports the industry through education, training, and technical support. Jamel is a board-certified entomologist who holds a master's degree in entomology and a PhD in ecology and evolutionary biology from the University of Kansas. And while attending grad school, Jamel launched his own pest management business, starting from the ground up. He owned and operated BRS Pest Control and Consulting for 9 years, and this helped him gain practical experience in the field solving complex pest management issues. Previously, Dr. Sandage served as a research entomologist with responsibilities in product research and development, efficacy testing, and technical assistance. A couple more notes to pass along before I turn things over to Jamel. One is a disclaimer, and that is the views expressed in the presentation made during this event are those of the speaker and not necessarily the PCT Media Group or our parent company, GIE Media. And presentations during the event or the participation of vendors during the event do not constitute an endorsement of the vendor or speaker's views, products, or services. And the other note I'd like to pass along, love to get as many questions in as possible from all of you who've joined us today. You can ask questions by typing them into the Q&A interface that's at the bottom of your screen. I'll collect those questions and then we'll ask those to Jamel at the end when he's finished. And so with that, happy to turn things over to Dr. Jamel Sandage.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking the time out of the day to talk about commercial kitchens and pest management and control. So I'm very excited to talk to you about this topic today, and I will remove myself from the screen and start the presentation. All right. Thank you once again for taking the time out to listen to a little bit of information on eliminating small flies and cockroaches. This is not going to just be about commercial kitchens, but it'll be about a lot of other things as well. So thank you for joining me. But let's start off with those commercial kitchens. Now, commercial kitchens provide the perfect environment for small flies and cockroaches to just do exceptionally well. If you think about it, there is just constant food waste. There's ample harborage and breeding sites everywhere. There's consistent and constant moisture from spills and from using pressure washers to clean things. And this is one thing that people don't often think about. You often have higher temperatures in commercial kitchens that will actually help speed up the growth cycles of small flies. They're also closed at night when most of your cockroaches are active. And for a vast majority of the commercial kitchens, you're going to see very minimal cleaning. But also, one thing that's imperative here is that you often see a limited knowledge of pest management. And I'd like to talk about that for a few seconds because I think it's so important. We have to realize that people who own and operate commercial kitchens may have absolutely no knowledge of how the small fly problem actually relates to sanitation. So it may not be something that they have actually ever learned. So this is an educational opportunity. And once you get them to go along with you on this educational opportunity ride, things become a lot more simple. So always remember that you know, these people they're chefs, they're cooks, they're operators, they're owners. They may have a very limited knowledge of what actually is behind the scenes causing these issues. So the last thing on there is repairs are often infrequent. So we've been in a commercial kitchen once over the last 6 months, or once a month for the last 6 months, and we still see the same things in disrepair. So that's a continuous problem. Now, this is actually a picture that I took just a few days ago where we have a black-eyed fruit fly landing on the plate. And the first thing you think about when that fruit fly lands on your plate may be to get it off your plate, but the first thing I think of is, I wonder where on earth that little small fly was before he landed on my fork. The answer is he was probably in one of these places. And so when you see small flies, you really want the companies that you're working for knowing this factor, knowing that those small flies, they land on and breed in the most disgusting situations, and then they fly from that disgusting drain or that disgusting mess directly onto people and food and preparation services. So that continual problem is always going to exist. Now, what are the key factors that we need to consider for small flies and for cockroaches? The biggest thing, again, is moisture. It's extremely important. Small flies depend on moisture for development. They depend on it for breeding materials, and cockroaches, of course, depend on it for water sources. Now, the larvae, pupae, and the eggs of a juvenile are very important. If you find adults, it really means something. But if you start finding the early instar juvenile cockroaches and you start finding the larvae of the small flies, you've really hit the mother lode. So when you're looking for them, doing your searches, it's imperative that you actually find those before you start treatment, because they may be in different places in different commercial kitchens or different areas or residential homes. Drains are often an issue, but drains are not always the source of small flies. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, but spending too much time on drains and not enough time on other things is an important thing to remember. Adult flies. Adults are not often, are often, excuse me, but not always found near the source. So again, you have to search for the pupae, and identify where the recently emerging adults are coming from. These larvae always crawl out of these wet, nasty places into dry areas so they can pupate. The other thing that you find in commercial kitchens a lot is fans. So fans, because it's hot in there. And so small flies getting emerging in one area get blown into other areas of the facility pretty easily. And then the last thing is time. Small flies reproduce rapidly. Initial services should be weekly when infestations are severe. And I'll go over exactly why that should happen a little while later. So as we've discussed already, most flies breed in unsanitary conditions, where the larvae are feeding on either dead, dying, or decaying organic matter, or anything that is rotting, fermenting, decaying. That's where they're going to lay their eggs. That's where the adults are going to touch, and they are going to move those contaminants from these areas into the other areas. So the adults emerge and become contaminated with those disease-causing agents if the pupae are close to these areas as well, which in most circumstances they are. So here's a list of a few of the bacteria and diseases that flies and cockroaches commonly carry. And of these, the most important for commercial kitchens is often Salmonella, dysentery, E. coli, Listeria. So those are commonly things that are found in commercial kitchens and commercial kitchen drains because of all of the products that are brought in and the animals and animal carcasses and fruit and vegetables that are rinsed off where these things go down the drain. So what are some other key issues that we need to think about when we're doing service in either commercial areas or in residential areas for small flies and cockroaches? Number one, fly numbers are on the rise. We have a lot of reduced number of products that can be used in commercial kitchens. And with most of the reviews of EPA that are going on right now, by next year, you're going to see even fewer products that can be used in commercial kitchens. And it's just getting worse. So reduce use of interior sprays and fogging. So this used to be very, very common practice to shut down a commercial kitchen and use a fogging agent in the kitchen to kill flies. Increase in popularity of cockroach and ant baits. So when you have ant baits and cockroach baits placed in specific spots, you no longer have pesticides being used more broadly or spot applications inside the interior that may also kill flies or small flies. And so there's less focus on cleaning and sanitation. So power washing has become the thing that most commercial facilities use as their method of cleaning. Does it clean all that well? Not really. It just kind of pushes things around into areas where they won't be seen anymore a lot of times. So some of these flies are seen mostly as a nuisance. And so when things are seen as just as a nuisance, it doesn't seem that important. But what we want to push forwards is that these things are not only just a nuisance to your customers, they're also potential disease vectors, and they're also indicators of a larger problem inside your kitchen. And the last thing here is the public is more aware. Every time I watch the show Kitchen Nightmares, I see Gordon Ramsay talking about how disgustingly nasty some of these commercial kitchens are and how these chefs should be ashamed of themselves. And we as pest control professionals, I guarantee you, I can look on the list of all the participants and every single one of you is probably extremely hesitant to go into any type of restaurant. And when you do go, you're probably going to sneak by the kitchen or look in the bathroom or check behind the toilet for that sticky trap just before you sit down with your family. If you're like me, I've sat down, ready to order, went to the bathroom, came out and said, nope, we're not eating here, and left and went somewhere else that I could trust. So looking forward, in the commercial kitchens and outdoor spaces, indoor spaces, and this is actually a picture of an indoor space. And these are just extremely target-rich environments. You see, small flies breed in so many different things that you have the soda fountain drains, you have the ice machine drains, you have a dishwasher that is actually collecting food particles underneath it. And it has moisture under there. You have right here, you have the trash can. And if you look down below, you'll see that a couple things fell out of the trash can. Where did they end up? They end up back behind all the equipment, just as you see these cups in this picture here that have gotten pushed back and pushed back. And it'll take them forever to figure out that this is where the small fly issues are coming from. So you have cut fruit, you have everything possible that a small fly would love in this situation, and cockroaches as well. So where do you begin? if you're familiar with small fly work, or if you're just now getting on board and thinking about small fly work, it's very important to go in with a plan. And so we've created this acronym called IDENTIFY, and that means to inspect the account, determine the levels of decay, examine and determine the source of the infestation, note the pest sanitation maintenance that's needed, target steps for exclusion, initiate a custom fly program, fly and cockroach program, and formulate a plan of evaluation. The last thing is, if you do all these things, you yield results for your clients. So let's take a closer look at how we're going to conquer these issues. Now, there's health inspection clean, and then again, there's pest control clean. So how many of you out there have gone into a facility that has a big health department letter A outside, but you know that you've serviced that facility and it's full of cockroaches and small flies? So you wonder how these things occur, but we're not graded on the same system. And if you look here, there's a restaurant health inspection checklist. You'll see there's a lot of things for food storage, temperatures, chemical products, hand washing, everything. And then we have this one little area with 4 little bullets about discouraging pest infestations, which only says clean areas around the loading dock and dumpsters, make sure all doors close tight, install air curtains, and arrange for professional pest control. I don't know about you, but to me, that doesn't even start to address the pest infestations that occur. Now, these pictures up here are very, very familiar to most people that have either been to a bar or a commercial kitchen, a restaurant, where you see these little things that we like to call the cones of shame. It means that they have such a bad small fly problem that the bottoms of all of these bottles are probably filled with small flies due to the fact that they can go inside of those pores. So we'll talk more about that later, but this is very important to understand that we have different definitions of clean. There's health inspection clean, there's pest control clean, and then there's insect clean. So the I in that acronym stands for inspect the account. You want to inspect both the interior and the exterior. So there are a lot of places where they're in a strip mall, and it may not, the problem may not even come from that facility. It may be the next door neighbor who's filthy, that leaves his trash everywhere, and then it's causing the small fly problems in the restaurant that you service. But if you never go outside, you would never know that. There are also things like false ceilings that will allow small flies and cockroaches from other areas of a small strip mall or from other buildings within a facility to infiltrate that kitchen or that restaurant that you're trying to take care of. So really, really look and inspect the interior and the exterior of all of these facilities. Next, you want to determine the levels of decay. Now, this is actually very, very important. Now, how bad is the issue? How long has it been going on? And what flies do we see? Because each fly is associated with a certain level of filth and disgust. Level 1 is a gelatinous biofilm that you often find in drains. You find this gelatinous biofilm in ice machines. A lot of times in ice machines, especially where the ice machines dump into some sort of main drain. And you often find this in bathrooms as well. So that's where you get your moth flies, and those larvae develop in that biofilm. Of course, these are our little hairy winged friends who fly very slow and seem to sit on the wall motionless for hours on end. The females lay up to 100 eggs in small egg masses. and their life cycle is 7 to 28 days. They're not really known to spread too many diseases, but we'll leave the page open for that, because much like our next friends, the Drosophila, the red-eyed Drosophila, they were not thought to cause or spread disease either until more recent research shows that they are potential disease vectors. So moving into the early decay, from the gelatinous biofilm to the next level, which is that early decay. And we see that in mostly rotting fruits and vegetables. So think about the fruit stand at your local produce market. That's where you see that first stage of decay. There's one bad apple that's in that batch, and it's underneath, and it's attracting those fruit flies. That's where you get that early decay from those fermenting fruits. So the life cycle of these guys is 8 to 10 days. The adults are relatively short-lived, but they are egg-laying machines. They lay about 500 eggs in that short period of time. And they commonly infest, the fruits, vegetables, fermenting liquids, ciders, vinegar. And so again, the larvae crawl out to drier areas when they want to pupate. And you see this same thing with larger flies as well. You see bottle flies or house flies. They are in nasty, wet, disgusting areas, but when they pupate, they often crawl out, and they may crawl great distances to find somewhere dry to pupate. Now let's take a look at this. So now you see the bathroom drain. And that bathroom drain, a good way to find the source of some of these flies is you can use tape or an inverted solo cup with oil or a sticky trap or any kind of sticky substance at all to kind of test out these drains. And usually you don't have to leave these things too long, just a few hours, or either overnight if you want to come back and check it out and see if this is where the small flies are coming from. But when you look inside drains and you see a moderate level of filth and just a biofilm on the sides, that's generally where you're going to find drain fly or those moth fly larvae. Now, I talked about reproduction. Let's take a look at this. So one red-eyed fruit fly, as we said, 500 eggs. Their life cycle from egg to adult is 10 days. Newly emerged adults can mate in 2 days. That means 125,000 adult flies can appear in a 3-week time under ideal conditions. Guess where ideal conditions exist? Commercial kitchens and food facilities. So sometimes these fly populations can go from seemingly nothing to massive amounts of flies in just a short period of time. So that means that even with a 99% reduction in the population, you still have 1,250 adults possible from that 1% that was missed. So it's really, really critical to eliminate all of the sources where small flies can breed. And that's where our new product shines and comes in very effectively. Now, earlier I talked about leaks and temporary solutions and delayed repairs. Now, what do you notice in this picture? And I also took this picture again while I was on a trip. This is a leaking machine, a leaking soda machine or slushy machine that has a paper towel back here. Now that paper towel, let me go back to that real quick. So that paper towel has been there for quite some time, you can tell. And if also you look at the bottom of the legs of this machine, you can see where that sugary substance has been dripping down from these metal edges and staying in there. That's a small fly habitat. This piece of tissue paper back here, how long does it have to be left there before it starts an immense fly population, it can be left there for as little as 7 to 10 days. Now that piece of cloth, I actually went back to this place 2 weeks later and it was still there. So can a small fly problem start from a simple leak of a simple soda machine? Yes, it can, and it probably does more often than we think. Now let's look at level 3, the more advanced levels of decay. So this is where our friend, the dark-eyed or black-eyed fruit fly lives. And, you know, he prefers that decaying organic matter that's been there for a while. So the red-eyed fruit fly likes the apple that has been rotten about 2 weeks. The black-eyed fruit fly likes the apple that fell from the produce counter and somehow got underneath the counter and it's been there for a month. It's disgusting. The sugars have accumulated and it's now in the further stage of rot. That's where our dark-eyed fruit fly really enjoys to be. So it can be found developing in drains, cracks, crevices, under floor tiles, and they really love recycle bins, especially recycle bins that are rarely ever cleaned. That sugary substance, you get a lot of fermented liquids, sugary substance from anything from beer to soda to everything that leaks out. And it, you know, oftentimes these have holes on them and they leak out through those holes as well onto the floor. And our last stage is our most important stage, the stage that we never want to see. That is the level 4 late stage decay where phorid flies exist. Now, if you think about the most disgusting things you've ever seen in your life, the rotten corpse, the dead animal, the mausoleum, the broken sewage pipe, you know, the pile of rotten food, hoarders, you name it. That's where you're going to find the phorid flies. But the thing about phorid flies is they can be found in level 1, 2, 3, or level 4 decay. But they do exceptionally well in level 4 decay because they have no competition. Nothing else wants to live in something quite that disgusting. Now let's think about those dark-eyed fruit flies and that old stale beer, the spilled spirits, that bar fruit that just gets lost underneath the cabinets. And actually these pictures were taken just a few days ago in a bar. You don't see the cones of shame here, but you know they probably come out at night. But the things to look for, you look for the bars, the bar drains, bar food. So this was a small fly right in front of us that landed on a piece of fruit. And you look for anything in those areas where you have underneath the sinks, where all of these things, any leaks that go through, those sugary substances are going to get through and probably get power washed to the back of the cabinets or under the sink there. Now, phorid flies, a lot of times when you see phorid flies, it is a very serious situation because a lot of times there can be hundreds of thousands of phorid flies. And many times you'll see breaks in pipes. You'll see, and these are breaks in main sewer pipes sometimes. And it doesn't have to be an old facility. I've seen this so many times in brand new facilities where there's a little bit of settlement that happens after the facility has been built, and it kind of separates the main pipe elbow from the main pipe line. And so you have sewage and sewage from bathrooms and sinks and garbage disposals that's just been getting dumped down into the dirt that's underneath these facilities for several months to a year sometimes before you see this significant phorid fly breakout and have those hundreds of thousands of phorid flies fill the facility. Now, cockroaches are extremely difficult to control under these circumstances as well, because they can occupy any crack and crevice. And they have plenty to eat and plenty of water and everything they need. But as with flies, we want to refocus our efforts back onto health, disease transmission, and the correlation to sanitation. I think a lot of facilities forget that flies and cockroaches spread disease. And it's not just good enough to not have them walking around during the daytime. They need to be eliminated from a facility. So a lot of these callbacks that we see can be eliminated with this upfront clear instructions and expectations. And it really helps to take tons and tons of pictures. Everything you see, you need to take pictures like these, the one that you see on the screen right now, and that needs to go to whoever the most high up person is that you have a contact with, because oftentimes they have no idea that things are just as bad as they are. So in terms of cockroaches, we're really talking about American cockroaches. And I'll tell you just a few specific things about these. American cockroaches are extremely picky. It takes them 2 years to reach full maturity. So that means that they're very picky in the things that they eat. They do a lot of taste testing. So if you have a cockroach bait, they may dabble and taste test it a few times, and if their mouth parts get numb, which a lot of baits may do, then they won't go back to that. They won't continue to eat that. And so you really deal with some problems here, because those females live so long and they can produce so many egg capsules in their lifetime. So Oriental cockroaches are very much the same. These are both cockroaches that are found both on the interior and exterior. Of course, American cockroaches can fly in at night. And this is when you see, if you've ever been to a rendering facility where they render dead animals, chickens, those things, and turn them into animal byproducts, you'll see cockroaches at night flying in by the thousands in order to feast. Oriental cockroaches, not so much, but you'll find them on the outside of facilities more often than you will on the inside. So in cracks and crevices and damp areas outside, but they'll go in and out of facilities at nighttime. And of course, our friend, the German cockroach, and his close cousin there, the brown-banded cockroach. And I won't say too much about these right now, but it's important to see just how rapidly these things can reproduce. These females produce 5 egg capsules with 30 to 40 eggs. The egg to adult stage is about 100 days, and adults live another 100 to 200 days. So you're really talking about rapid population growth in a short period of time sometimes. So these things can get really out of hand if they're not taken care of and they're not taken seriously up front. So these are always good facts to have when you go to those commercial kitchens and you try to seal the deal on the business. You see one cockroach, you can tell them, well, in 100 days, that one cockroach could turn into 200 or 300 cockroaches easily if something's not done. Now, the E, examine and determine the source of the infestation. So one thing to think about is that even in the most meticulously cleaned facilities, there's nothing on these tables, there's nothing on the floor. The outside of the trash can is even clean, but look inside. Cockroaches are easily capable of climbing in and out of those trash cans to find a meal. So even the cleanliest kitchen can still have issues with small flies and cockroaches. And the N, note any existing pest infestation, sanitation, or maintenance, corrective actions needed. It's important that even though if they're not going to do those corrections, they need to know that you recognize that these are areas of concern that are causing their sanitation issues. So a few other things: sugar snakes. Sugar snakes build up inside drains, and these are caused by bacteria. It's a sort of a biofilm that forms as that bacteria colony grows and takes on the shape of those soda lines. You can see the soda line behind here, one of the drain lines behind there. So eventually that liquid can't pass through, causing a clog, causing a backup, which can make these problems even worse. But guess what loves these things? They're full of sugar, they're full of carbohydrates. So small flies and cockroaches love to go inside of these things, especially at night. And even in the heads of the soda fountains, you'll often find cockroaches at nighttime going inside to eat the sugary residues that are left inside those nozzles. And once again, the cones of shame we see here, and we see the cones of shame come in many different forms and shapes. So from little plastic cups to little paper hats. And we've also what you see here in this picture is there is no dump sink. There is just a floor drain that they are actually using as their dump sink. So they dump all of their ice and their drinks directly on the floor instead of inside of any kind of vessel that would actually aid in helping with their small fly issue. A new products on the market here. You have these little brushes that fit inside the beer tap nozzles, and so they're advertised as actually beer plugs for cleaning and hygiene, but really we know what they're for. They're for keeping small flies out of your beer and your beer taps. So when I looked online for these, I looked up 10 or 15 different brands, and then I looked at what are the comments. And the first 2 to 3, 4, sometimes 10 comments under each one was perfect for keeping small flies out of those beer taps. So we really know what those things are for. So that's another indicator to us that this facility may have small flies in them. Not a guarantee, but it's an indication that they may have small flies. Now, drainage systems. I want you to start thinking about drainage systems in these facilities. And so this can be a commercial kitchen, or it can be a high rise where all of the things are interconnected. But you see just how all these things are interconnected through this drainage system. That means that small flies entering the drainage system any number of ways, from eggs getting washed down to adults simply climbing down into the drain. You will see them, they can appear anywhere in a facility if they're traveling through the drainage system. And of course, cockroaches and small flies travel through the drainage system as an interconnected highway in these facilities. So drains are great habitat for them. They have food, they have water, they have shelter, and they have 100% complete concealment. You're never going to see them in there, and when they come out at night, no one's there to catch them. So again, these interconnectivity is an important thing to think about when you're treating for these small flies. So some things are not as obvious as they seem. You see this little stain on the concrete. That actually is a coffee shop where they are pouring their coffee grounds into the trash can. The trash can is leaking, along with some of the other sugary syrups and things that they use. And you can't really see it in this picture, but down over here in the dirt, one thing I saw was phorid fly larvae and also dark-eyed fruit fly pupae. So it's not always so obvious. The rest of this facility, the inside was perfectly clean. You can see how neatly the cardboard is stacked there. and everything's put away. The sides of the trash cans aren't filthy and disgusting. It actually looks like they use disinfectants on the side of the can, but sometimes they aren't so obvious. And then sometimes they are. And you know, a lot of us, unfortunately, have seen a lot of things like this. We've seen months of neglect, weeks of neglect, and we've seen years of neglect where the film and the food residue is built up so intensely and so thick that it would actually take putty knives and chisels to get it off the surface. So we also have, you know, in ice machines, we have those cold tolerant bacteria that create the biofilm and mold. And this drain right here is a floor drain. And that floor drain runs the length of that entire facility. So food particles, moisture in brooms and dustpans and mops. So how often do those things get replaced? I hope it's every 7 days, because if it's every 10 days, you have the opportunity for a lot of small flies to go from egg all the way to breeding adult from that slight bit of time delay. Now let's take a closer look at that drainage system. If you look close, right here, you're going to see dark-eyed fruit flies. If you look down in here, there were a bunch of dark-eyed fruit flies running up and down on the inside of this. And this is the same drain that was connected to that ice machine. So again, think about the interconnectivity of drains. Where does that drain go? Where is it leading to? Is it leading out into the dining room? Is there a drain out there that's connected to this disgusting drain in the back of the facility that you see? So that's very much something to think about. So I mentioned this earlier, but I want you to remember that small flies aren't always in drains. Experience is the best teacher. They can be anywhere. So don't, you know, single out drains and don't single out drains and forget the other things in the facility. And again, here's a display of how that power washing has pushed everything to the back, or to the back to no man's land where no one's going to touch it. Again, small buildup and cracks and crevices are where these small flies hide and breed and go unnoticed. Here again, power washing has done a couple of things. You see the rust all over the legs of the table, but you see food build up on everything back on the surface. Plenty for the cockroaches, plenty for the small flies. So that T is targeting steps for exclusion. You want to do everything you can to exclude pests from the outside, but we all know that that commercial kitchen is going to leave the door open because it's hot in there. They have fans running all the time. They have the doors open, and guess what they prop the door open with? Your rodent bait station. That's what they probably prop the door open with. So there are a lot of different devices, air curtains, these drain capture devices that let water down, but they won't let the cockroaches or small flies come up through them. So a lot of different things like that that are out there on the market and available. But the biggest thing that I want to talk about is initiate a custom flying cockroach management program using NICE's products. Excuse me. We have 4 steps here: sanitation, insecticide application, biosanitation, and pest monitoring and customer communication. And each one of these steps is just as important as the other. We've seen pictures of some of these, you know, disgusting drains that I've showed so far. And the biggest thing is that a lot of those have to be cleaned, physically cleaned, because sometimes there's just too much residue. And these small flies can be underneath all of that layer of filth, and your applications may be less effective unless you clean some of the grime off. I always say if you have to use a putty knife to inspect through the filth, it's a good chance that you need to clean that drain or clean that surface. So you want to kill the existing adults and larvae while preventing the adult emergence using insecticides and IGRs. And you want to utilize biosanitation to clean, reduce the buildup, and actively break down the fats and oils for the future. And the last thing is, initiating that plan for monitoring the situation. Sanitation number one, of course, most people are familiar with our product DSV, but they're not familiar that DSV is not only a disinfectant and sanitizer, but it is also labeled for contact kill for flies, eggs, and larvae. So you can use this in drains, but not at the same time as microbial cleaners, because they're antimicrobial, so they'll kill beneficial microbes as well. So that's one thing to hold and remember. Tools and equipment, there are a lot of different things on the market, everything from drain brushes to automatic and professional cleaning equipment. And some of the ones that our pest professionals are starting to love are these pressure washer drain kits. So you can manually clean out the opening, but then you can stick this pressure washer drain kit down in there. Some of them are self-feeding. They'll just walk down the drain and clean the drain as it goes. So you get into professional equipment after that point, which many people out there are starting to use for their commercial kitchens. Now, insecticide applications, Anisis has had for a long time now a very successful small fly and cockroach program. And I say change the game. We have our Nisus DSV to clean and sanitize. We have our Nibor-D to contaminate all of the food particles and kill the larvae and the adults and kill the cockroaches. We have our biosanitation product Bacazap to go in and to remove the organic material, and we have ProFoam Platinum, which goes to make the foam that's used in all these locations to go down and coat the surfaces of the drain. But what we've done now is, people came to us and said, we love that program, but it's got 4 different things. I have to carry around a bucket. I have to have a mixer. I have to have a sprayer. Can you make it better? And we said, yeah, we can make it better. Let's try. So we created a new product, Nibor-D Insecticide Foam plus IGR. And this is going to be a game changer for uncontrollable small fly and cockroach problems. So we've took the success of that program that people have seen over the last 10 years and put it in a can. Now, this treatment can be performed simply and conveniently, and it saves a ton of time because you don't need all that equipment. You don't need to mix. You don't need it to do anything but pull the can out and go to work. So it eliminates that mixing, eliminates potential spills, and it really, really speeds up service. And just like it has all the added benefits of Nibor-D. It turns the food debris into bait, which eliminates the larvae and inhibits the future infestations. And the one thing I love to say with this is always be ready to close. When I had a pest control company, what I would always tell my guys was always be ready to close the sale. And this is another item that you can have on your truck so that you're ready when opportunity strikes. If you're at a residential home and no one wrote small flies on the service report, you can go, I've got this. And now that just adds a little of more value to your company. You don't have to come back because somebody else has the foaming equipment today. Or you don't have to come back to that commercial equipment 2 weeks later because the foaming equipment broke down, or you need to buy a new one. So now you have the power of that program in a single can. So Nibor-D and Nibor-D IGR are great products. So Nibor-D can be applied as a powder, a liquid, or a foam, and that's where the Nibor-D plus IGR insecticide foam came from. And of course, they're both long-lasting because they are borates. The labels of Nibor-D and Nibor-D plus IGR are very easy to use. There are very few restrictions, and it's the type of borate and the formulation that really make all the difference in this case. So DOT versus boric acid. DOT is very water soluble. This is the biggest thing that we want you to know. It's very water soluble, so it goes into, it gets absorbed into those food particles. It gets absorbed into that organic material, and it creates that bait. So you don't see the same thing when you're using boric acid. They're crystals they're not very water soluble, and it creates a slippery surface on floors because boric acid is actually a natural lubricant. So if your mop solution is boric acid, you're going to have a slippery surface under many circumstances, whereas with DOT, you will not. So where can you use this new product? Many of the places and the pictures of filth and disgust I've been showing are why this product was invented. You could use it on surfaces, drains, cracks and crevices, voids, anywhere you want to use it. You can use it in bar drains, any drain, any spot, any surface that you need somewhere where that IGR and the DOT are going to be cause havoc on the small fly population. So whether it's bathroom sinks, whether it's mop sinks, whether it's floor drains, and the interesting thing about this is that it comes with the same straw that's found on our Foam Fresh, that 17-inch extension that's semi-rigid. So that it goes down past the P-trap, allows you to start doing the application, slowly pull it out, and then you can contact the backside of that drain plate where a lot of the small fly larvae and pupae are found, all without removing that drain plate, which is truly a time saver. You could use it in trash receptacles. You can use it just a number of different places. So surfaces, cracks and crevices, voids, drains, anywhere where that organic material is present, and anywhere you want to penetrate deep into those cracks and fill those voids. And why do we love foam so much? Because foam applies the AI to all surfaces, whether it's vertical, horizontal, it doesn't matter. And it delivers that 5% Nibor-D and 0.18% IGR, in this case, which is pyriproxyfen, and it gives you rapid control of small flies and cockroaches. And that IGR just really ensures that every stage in life cycle is effective. That DOT active ingredient remains in that food debris for the lifetime of it until it's removed, eaten, or cleaned up. And we all know it's probably not going to get cleaned up. So let's look at control and prevention. So Nibor-D plus IGR kills by direct contact. So when applied to cockroaches in a drain, cockroaches in a void, small flies in a drain, in a void, you're going to get very, very rapid kill with both of those organisms. But one thing you want to notice is that these are American cockroaches, one of the most difficult things to get rid of especially in a commercial or industrial facility when we're dealing with drains. Small fly emergence, we have kills by residual deposits and kills by reproductive and developmental controls. So with this chart here, it is really showing that Nibor-D plus IGR, after application to larvae, we have 0 adults emerging after 11 days. And that same 10-day cycle here that we're looking at for the emergence of adults, and small flies introduced into previously treated drains. Now, this is exceptionally important because this is a case where we treated the drains and we introduced the small flies later at a later point in time. And this really shows that treating areas that the small flies have not yet infested prevents them from infesting that area. So it also kills the adult flies as they land in those areas and attempt to lay their eggs. So how and why is foam so powerful? If you look at this situation, it tells everything you need to know. When you look at drains and pipes, water only flows about the last 16th of most of these pipes. So you look at this P-trap here, and you see that the water is already going down. It flows through here, it fills the pipe, and it goes down from there. And from there on, it's in the last little bit of the pipe. But where do the food particles often get stuck? They often bounce around in here, they splash around in there, and they get stuck on the upper surfaces of the pipe. So that's why foam is such a versatile tool. It can be used with any active ingredient, and it can work with for termites, ants, cockroaches, flies. It really doesn't matter. It's a very, very versatile form and a very, very versatile formulation. So our next process is biosanitation. After the small flies have been reduced and after you've done your basic cleaning, you need to keep those drains clear, clean, and continue to break down the oils, grease, and carbohydrates. That's where our long-term process comes in with our biosanitation products. And with Foam Fresh and Nibor-D plus IGR, you have now 2 aerosols that make this process extremely rapid and have a complete service with just those 2 cans. So these insecticides and biosanitation and these disinfectants can all work together, but there are certain circumstances you need to pay attention to. But the basis of it is that you need to use sanitizers before any biosanitation, just because, as I mentioned before, they can harm the beneficial bacteria as well. And our last thing here is really pest monitoring. We really want to be able to monitor what's going on. You need to have pest sighting logs. And nowadays they make these USB cameras anywhere from 20 to 50 bucks that attach to iPhones and Androids that can go down into the drain. So you can actually have the facility manager standing right beside you as you go down into the drain and show them the filth, the disgust, and also the fly larvae, the adults that are down in that area. So I'm going to move right to this, and these are expectations. So there's really no replacement for cleaning. Some of the surfaces need to be cleaned in order for the pesticides to work. With borates, it's interesting because you can use borates in some of these nasty, filthy, disgusting areas, and it turns all of that mucky mess into bait. So that borates are more effective than other things under these circumstances because it's allowing them to eat what they've already eaten. Biosanitation is a beneficial tool, not a miracle solution. We've got to get them to perform maintenance. And so in giving this presentation, I hope this gives you a kind of leg up on your competition, as well as a closer look into commercial kitchens and some of the products and performance guides that NICES offers. And I want to thank you for listening today. And please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or want any further information. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sandage. We're right up against the 1 hour mark, but we'll take a few questions here. And if we don't get to any, I apologize for that, but you can follow up with Jamel, and we'll also send you folks a follow-up email with a link to the recording. That was a question we had. And yeah, we have recorded it. It'll be up on our website, and we'll provide a copy to NICES as well. So so you can go back and watch it. And with that follow-up email, you can ask your questions to Jamel there as well. One question that we did get, Jamel, we had a couple folks were asking about California. Is the product registered in California?
The product currently is in review in California. We're towards the end of that. So it should be within the next month, the next 2 months. Don't hold me to that, because they take their own sweet time with things. But it's around the corner, and it should be fairly soon, within the calendar year, is the expectation.
And similarly, what about Canada? Is it approved in Canada?
I think we're under works with Canada, and we started this in the United States, but we're working on our foreign registrations for any products right now.
There was a question about a copy of the slides, what you'll do is you'll get a copy of the actual webinar, so you can view the slides from that. Let's see here. What other materials need or should be used in conjunction with Nibor-D plus IGR? On
our website, I don't know if it's there right now, but soon we're going to have a full protocol for commercial flies and cockroaches, and it'll have everything you want to know about that, plus things you didn't want to know, probably. One of the other products we always recommend is DSV, because these drains contain, E. coli, Listeria, all these nasty bacteria and viruses. So we always recommend using DSV if you get into those nasty, disgusting situations. You want to protect yourself. You always wear, of course, your eyewear, your protective wear. But in terms of eliminating small fly and cockroach problems, Nibor-D plus IGR, Foam Fresh, and if you get into nasty situations, DSV. But otherwise, you can handle just about any situation, unless if it's a massive situation, a huge facility. We want you to go in with our original cocktail and Nibor-D, DSV, Pro Foam, and Bacazap. But otherwise, with all your follow-up visits in small infestations, small coffee shops, whatever it is, Nibor-D plus IGR and Foam Fresh are all you need.
And then how many soda fountains can be treated with one can?
Oh, wow. If you're talking about just the drains, I haven't, you got me there, because I've calculated every drain but a soda drain. So let's say I know that you can do 35 drains that are 1.5 inch, 2 feet down, with one can of Nibor-D plus IGR. So I would imagine it depends on the length of the soda fountain, but I would imagine you get several hundred soda fountains out of there. So each can produces 6.5 gallons of foam. It's a 21-ounce can. It's a huge can. So it produces quite a bit of foam, and it's good, so you don't have to go back to the truck and get another can. We made it as big. It's the biggest can with the most fluid possible for this product.
Question was, do you need a pest control license to apply DSV and Nibor-D plus IGR? The comment was, a lot of us salespersons do not have a license.
So of course we always recommend doing that. It is, if you represent your company, yes, you do. Can commercial facilities buy these things? They can. It's going to be a long time before they really even know these things exist, or they exist. But commercial disinfectants like DSV, yes, people can buy them and use them. But yes, I would recommend that. I'm not going to say don't have a license, but everybody that does this for a living needs a license for any applications, because both of these are registered pesticides. So that's what makes DSV different. It's not just a disinfectant, it's also a registered pesticide. And so that makes all of the difference in whether or not, if it's Lysol, if you're spraying a Lysol or using a Lysol wipe as a disinfectant or sanitizer, you're fine. But if you use DSV, it's a registered pesticide.
Jamel, a question that came in earlier in your presentation when you were sort of talking about the biology and behavior of the flies, small flies. What percentage of small fly population consists of adults and what percentage is immature?
So usually it's anywhere from, it's usually like 80-20 most of the time. It's 80% larvae and 20% adults, but it just depends on the stage and the phase, because you can have situations where the population is started by 15 or 20 flies, and they all lay their eggs within within a 5-day window, and so everything in the population is now adults. So you won't have, it's kind of cyclical. You generally always have larvae, and you always have eggs, and you always have adults, but in some circumstances all of the larvae may pupate and become adults at the same time. So you'll have a lot more adults at any given point than you will larvae or eggs.
Jamel, the last question I have for you was asked a couple of folks that asked about it, and I know you mentioned it at one point during your presentation, but where can folks order the product?
So the product is available at most distributors now. So this product is really hot in the pipeline right now. So it is just now getting out of the gate. It's been it started hitting shelves and distributors probably only a few weeks ago, and there are still a few distributors who haven't brought it in yet. So I would say call on whoever it is that is your distributor and tell them you're interested in the product and how many pallets you want to buy, and we will make sure everything happens. It is, and I can say it's actually sold in a case of 6 cans. So 21 ounce cans. It's sold in a case of 6, and every single can comes with a drain actuator and a drain extension as well. So that's added benefit. We've really put together a program that we think that the guy in the field, the guy or girl in the field who's doing this every day is really going to appreciate, because we thought about them during the whole process. What do they need? How do they need to use it? What's going to help protect them? And we've implemented all those things with this product.
Cool. All right. Well, Jamel, like I said, there's a few questions we didn't get to. They were kind of longer, kind of involved questions that would probably be best handled by Jamel in a one-on-one back and forth type conversation, email or phone conversation. So again, we're going to make sure Jamel gets all those questions, but we're able to get through most of the questions. And again, we will provide you that follow-up information if you want to reach out to Jamel. So Jamel, thanks again for presenting today.
Thank you guys for attending, and yeah, please feel free to contact me. I'm ready, willing, and eager to help.
Great. So a big thank you to everybody, as I'll echo what Jamel said, for attending and taking some time out of your day to attend the webinar, and look for those follow-up emails from us. And thank you to NICES for sponsoring our webinar today. Good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.